So, hello viewer. Have you ever thought about your own morality and what makes your life worthwhile? And yes, I know that's not something we as a society like to talk about. But I feel like the series I Will Die Soon, at least by the end, it makes you somewhat think about how you affected the people around you and how you atoned for your transgressions. Okay, I need to pace myself. I don't want to get too serious too fast. So the story starts different and kind of depressing. But I don't think the story really starts until chapter 3. And the reason is, of course, is that they have to introduce you to the main characters, bad situation, and the game. But this isn't exactly a happy story, and that's not to say there aren't some happy moments, but this story has a really great time playing with your emotions, which you might think would be a bad thing, but it actually lets you get more in depth into the character's feelings and struggle. The reason why that is necessary is because his problem is something that is very common in the minds of Asian people, but it isn't something the West focuses on in their own media, especially for people who are relatively young, which is the thought of suicide for not being able to find a job, even if you have a college degree, because no one wants to hire you. Which some people might think is impossible, but in Asia, it is supposedly not uncommon for people to fall into a scenario like this. Well, at least that's what I would guess from how much I see it in their media, but let's not get too caught up on that. So after Lee Ja Choi, our MC finished college at the age of 26. He spent the last 5 years looking for a job in one of the big companies, but his goal never came to fruition. So he's still been job searching. So he's basically just unemployed and living off his own life savings and the government. But hey, who doesn't want some of that sweet government money? Wait, did I say life savings? I mean no life savings. Because he invested it all into Bitcoin just before it crashed back in 2018. And he's overdue on his rent. So all in all, a very sucky life if you ask me. So I'm sure most of you know what it feels like to be broken up with. Well, now just imagine some girl you absolutely loved broke up with you, and then just 3 months later, she's getting married to some smugglers, which in my opinion, could cause anyone to be driven to the edge. So he decides to end it all and jump from his apartment, cursing his own life and claiming that he controlled death. Which made the death, yes, you heard that right, the human embodiment of death, to get angry. And was it for that anger? She forced him to join a game of sorts. The game involved giving Ja Choi 13 more lives, but not just any lives. The lives of people who are just about to die unless he can do something about it. And these people are all in different kinds of situations, ranging from rich to poor, and from sane to crazy. But I don't think that's really the important part though, because what it's really about is the interconnecting plot which connects together in a bittersweet ending which was beautifully planned ahead. It connects these individual lives by having characters that we thought were one note and not going to actually appear later in the story. Like how in the third reincarnation, he reincarnates as a 15-year-old fat boy who's being bullied. Which I'm sure most of you know isn't exactly the best situation to be in. So to stop himself from being bullied anymore, he actually got the other bullies to turn their back on Jun. The leader of the group was his second-hand man hated him. So Ja Choi made a situation where Jun embarrassed himself by making himself seem weak. Then, weeks after having the bully become the bullied, they see each other again, and he says to him, "Yes, it's my fault this happened to you, but it's your fault I did it to you, you failure." And when he hears that, the guy snaps and murders him with a brick. But that character doesn't end there. Because then, only a couple lives later, our main character is reincarnated as someone who's in jail, and only a couple months from being out. But guess who's there acting tough, like he's a professional murderer? Unlike the big scared bluffer he is, that same bully June. Whoever at the jail thought was a super scary killer was suddenly dropped to the bottom of the food chain again when our MC told everyone he was faking being a big scary serial killer. So everyone started to beat him up, which made him actually try to kill him again. Basically, but this time in a different body. But because the guy he reincarnated into this time was super buff, he grabbed the shivy mater and actually decided to scare him almost half to death by acting like he was actually being possessed by the soul of the 15-year-old boy. And referenced what had happened to the boy and actually repeated what was said to him before he killed him. "Yes, it's my fault this happened to you, but everything I did was because of you." To which he then goes on to explain exactly what happened in the days leading up to him murdering him, reminding him of how he hit June with a chair and spilled soup on his head, which led to him getting kicked out of his friend group and him murdering Ja Choi. Then he tells June that he's been possessed by the 15-year-old boy he killed, and though you can't see me, I'll be there next to you in the future as well until the day you die. Which actually made him so scared he peed his pants, which was actually pretty funny, not gonna lie. Another point I'd like to mention before I talk about the other way the story interconnects, it's how they deal with the main character dying every time. Was the person who he reincarnates into also had a family? So the author usually makes it so when the MC dies, it isn't usually caused directly from Ja Choi's actions, and instead more like an accidental consequence, that he died for a reason or a cause. But this story also has that deep plot of family, and how you affect those around you in both life and death, expressed in the later half. But of course, it's not perfect. Well, more like the character himself isn't perfect, because no one person is truly perfect. So through the story, he also wraps up all the people who wronged him, and the people he cared about in one way or another. So now on to one last example of how all the different reincarnations interconnect. Is by how, in the beginning of the story, Ja Choi is reincarnated basically as an ugly bastard, who just beat people and was convicted for sexually assaulting a woman. So now he has to wear an ankle monitor when he goes outside. And when the now Ja Choi, who's inhabiting his body, goes to the grocery store, he gets attacked and gets kidnapped and was going to be murdered for what I can only guess to be Instagram clout or something. But when he was being attacked, he was majestically saved. Well, this is what he thought, until he was then brutally murdered by the guy who thought was saving him out of the kindness of his heart. Well, then later on, Ja Choi is actually reincarnated into the guy who killed him, which normally wouldn't mean much, and he would just end himself again. But what made this part of the story special is that in the life just before, he'd actually found a reason to live. But as soon as he started to find hope, it was immediately squashed by a rich drunk driver who didn't even care he killed someone, and didn't even go to jail. So through the person who killed him, he killed another person that killed him. And the guy who squashed all of his hopes. Okay, yes, I know what I'm saying is kind of vague, but that's on purpose though, because I really don't want to spoil all this amazing story. Now moving to the end of this story, through his journey he finally did begin to understand the importance of life, and how he really made his mom feel when he jumped off that building in the beginning, which really brought the story together. So to anyone that is still watching, you really should read I Will Die Soon. Also, before I end this off, remember to look for every instance of the book Chestnuts in the Drawer, which is scattered through the whole series, and it was surprisingly kind of important to the story. But I don't want to spoil too much, because I actually do want the people who are watching this to read the manhwa, because I would honestly say it is one of my favorite pieces of fiction. Anyway, also remember to check out my Twitch, and thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.